On this week's MetPy Monday, we're going to work with environments, how to manage, create, clone, name, and clean up after yourself when you're using them in your scientific workflow. Welcome to another MetPy Monday. Hello, I'm John Lehman, a software engineer for Unidata. On this week's MetPy Monday, we're going to revisit environments. We've talked about these before, but it continues to be a source of confusion for our users as it's a relatively complicated management process and takes a little while to get your head around it. So why would you want to use environments? Environments are completely encapsulated sandboxes that allow you to have a set of packages and an environment that is completely separate from any other environment. This is great for sharing the environment that you use to run analysis on a paper, or setting up the exact same environment on multiple machines in a lab, or switching back and forth between Python 2.7 and Python 3.6, or an environment that has one set of dependencies that don't play well with a set of dependencies in another environment. It makes package management much, much easier. So let's go ahead and look at some commands with environments. The first one is going to be Kondaenvlist. So this lists all of the environments that are on my system. You see I have several, and notice the asterisk is around which environment is currently active. You might say, how do I get to this screen? If you're on Mac or Linux, this is just your terminal. If you're on a Windows machine, this is in your Anaconda prompt only. And you see that each of these environments is just a folder in wherever you installed Anaconda or Miniconda, envs, and then the environment name. So if something goes really wrong, you can just go delete this folder and that environment is gone. Another common question we get is, what about packages that are used by multiple environments? Do I have a copy multiple times? And the answer is no. These packages are linked, so if you have NumPy 1.11 installed in multiple environments, you only have one copy of NumPy 1.11. Now you can have 1.11, 1.12, 1.13, and so on, all on your system, and that can start to take up some space, and we'll show you how to clean that up. So let's say that you've already got some environments, and we want to use one. So say I want to use the Unidata environment. Conda activate Unidata. And this used to be source activate several years ago, but now Conda activate on all modern installs is the appropriate incantation. And you notice that in the head of my prompt, it has changed from base to Unidata. I never work in the base environment. I never install anything in the base environment. I never touch it. I always create new environments for what I'm doing. This is really handy if I want to try something, and if it doesn't work, just throw the whole environment away. So now I can use my Unidata environment. If I want to get back to base, Conda deactivate. You always want to go back to base. So if I Conda activate Unidata, now I'm going to Conda activate Python testing, another environment. So now I'm in Python testing. Now if I type Conda deactivate, I go back to Unidata. Now I have to type Conda deactivate again to get back to base. So you always want to deactivate, go back to the base environment, and then activate the next environment that you want to work with. You can always use the cls command or clear on Mac or Linux to clear your prompt there. So now we want to create our own environment. The command is conda create --name lets us provide a name. So I'm going to call it my new paper. And then we can specify what we want installed in that environment to start with. And we can always add more later, but right now if we just run conda create, we're going to get an empty environment with just a few dependencies in it, not even Python. So I'm going to specify Python equals 3. This will get me the most recent Python 3 dot whatever version is available. So it's going to go out and solve this environment, which is a pretty simple one to solve. It says these are the new things I'm going to install. So it'll be Python 3.7.3 and some new versions of setup tools and pip and so on. And I'm just going to hit return for yes, which is the default. Go ahead and let it download, extract, install, and get that environment ready to go. Okay, so now that that's done, we can say Conda activate or Conda deactivate. Remember, it shows those commands right there to remind you. So Conda activate. And I know some folks say that this is a lot of commands to remember. Just remember, you're always going to start with Conda because we're wanting to do something with Conda. And then the next thing is what you want to do. So env if we're dealing with envs, and then some subcommand for that. In this case, activate. We want to use something, so we want to activate it. My new paper. If I run the command Kondaenvlist, it's going to show me what all's installed in this environment, which isn't much. There's Python 3.7.3, which we requested. So maybe I need to do some basic analysis, so I need NumPy. Conda, remember we always start with Conda. What do we want to do? We want to install. What do we want to install? We want to install NumPy. If I don't specify anything, it's going to install the most recent version of NumPy. You can always specify a specific version, such as 1.12, so NumPy equals 1.12. So I'll go ahead and say yes. And that's going to download and execute, and we're done. So now if I run Kondaenvlist, we see that I've got those dependencies as well as NumPy 1.16.3 installed now. So we can always Conda uninstall if you want to get rid of one of these packages as well. So Conda uninstall NumPy. Saying what's going to remove, and say, yep, that's fine. And now we're back to a pretty vanilla environment, though notice there are still some leftover dependencies like MKL and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and deactivate to get back to my base environment. Now, what if we want to remove this environment? It's corrupted, it doesn't work right, or we just don't need it anymore. Conda env, so we're going to do something with environments, remove, and we specify the name, my new paper. And now if we look at Conda env, we want to work with environments, list them. That environment is gone, so we've successfully removed it. Another common issue that we see is you have an environment that works and you want to try installing something new that you're not sure if it's going to work. So you go and you have to manually recreate another, we have my working environment and then my testing environment. And to create a new version of my testing environment, I have to manually go back and type out all the installs that I want to duplicate my working environment. That's not the best thing to do. We can make the computer do that work for us. So I'm going to Conda create name env1. I'm not going to put anything in it. We'll proceed. All right, so it's done. And I'm going to Conda create name env2. I specify that I want to clone env1. So now I have two environments. env2 is a clone of everything that was in env1. And again, if I want to remove those, Conda env remove env1 and 2. So I've cleaned up my environments list here. The last thing I want to show you is Conda clean. So there's lots of options for Conda clean. I encourage you to read the documentation on it. I normally use the T and P option, which removes tarballs and packages that are no longer in use. This is a great way to free up some hard drive space. So it'll remove the tarballs and it will remove any packages that aren't currently associated with any environment. So when I run that, I'm going to get 1.31 gigs free on the tarballs. So I say, yes, I want to do that. And then now it will go through and do the packages, if there are any packages that can be removed that are no longer used in any environment. And your results will, of course, vary based on how long you've been using environments. So here I'll get 4.63 gigs free. That's pretty good. So I've freed up over 5 gigs on my system just by running one simple command. This can be very important for those of you on SSDs that aren't very large. And again, you're not using these things, so there's no reason to keep them around on your system. They're older, so if you've been doing this for a while or have had lots of environments and tried lots of packages and then removed the environments, this can free up substantial space for you. And it might take a few minutes to complete, depending on what your exact situation is. All right, so with that, I hope that environments are a little bit clearer now, how you can create them, how you can clone them, how you use them by activating and deactivating them, and how you can clean up after yourself to save yourself a lot of hard drive space. I hope that you found this useful, and I'll see you on next week's MetPy Monday.